For a celebration, anniversary, or anything else you can think of, not much beats a Brazilian steakhouse. But what do you need to know before you go? Watch along if you want to avoid mistakes, learn some secrets, and save some cash on your night out.
The Portuguese word churrasco means barbecue in English and can be used to refer to all kinds of grilled meats. More often, however, churrasco refers to a specific method of Brazilian grilling in which beef is barbecued on a long skewer and served by cutting off individual slices. Brazilian steakhouses use this technique to cook and serve a variety of different meats, from sirloin cap known as picanha to a type of pork loin called Lombo. But for Brazilians, churrasco is much more than just a cooking method. Churrasco, like much regional cuisine, defines a culture and a way of life. Brazilians celebrate their homemade barbecue no matter if they're throwing a party or just relaxing with friends and family. Though you may not be able to travel to Brazil to experience the churrasco way of life, traditional Brazilian steakhouses can give you a taste. Most Brazilian steakhouses serve food using a unique method that lies somewhere between buffet and family-style dining. Rodízio, which translates to rotation, requires diners to pay a fixed price for a variety of all-you-can-eat options. Most steakhouses have a salad bar, but the main course is paraded out of the kitchen on large skewers, which servers slice directly onto diners' plates. According to legend, Rodízio dining started when a waiter at a restaurant called Churrascaria Plataforma in the state of Rio Grande do Sul mistakenly brought a meat skewer to a table that didn't order it. Instead of immediately correcting his mistake, the waiter allowed the diner to try the dish anyway, and so a great tradition was born. Rodízio gained popularity in the mid-20th century when restaurants began feeding truck drivers. Truck driving, as a profession, became more common along with the rise of more road construction in Brazil. Because of Brazil's many cattle herds, meat was cheap to buy, and because of the simple churrasco tradition, it was also easy to make. Hungry travelers were eager to get their hands on it when they stopped to rest and refuel. Though the meat on a Brazilian steakhouse menu might not be familiar to outsiders, locals know these dishes well. From picanha to fraldinha, Brazilian meats, especially churrasco style, are some of the best you'll ever have. Some of the most common cuts you'll encounter at a Brazilian steakhouse are picanha, filet mignon, chuleta, and fraldinha. Picanha is the most traditional cut, taken from the top of a cow's rump and seasoned with salt. It gets skewered into a C shape when it cooks over open flames. Though filet mignon is a well-known cut of beef, sometimes you'll find it dressed up in bacon or a parmesan crust. Chuleta is whole cuts of ribeye steak that gets skewered and roasted, and fraldinha is a cut of bottom sirloin that's marbled with fat and served in long flat pieces. If you consider yourself a big carnivore, a Brazilian steakhouse is the place for you. The Brazilian steakhouse experience centers around, well, steak, and lots of it. The popular chain, Fogo de Chão, has been called a meat eater's mecca because it offers all the meat you can eat. And in that sense, it's not unique among Brazilian steakhouses. However, when Dottie Griffith reviewed a Brazilian steakhouse back in 1997, she noted, Americans and Texans are used to all-you-can-eat salad bars, but all-you-can-eat grilled steak and other meats was new at the time. Not for the faint of heart, or vegetarians, a typical Brazilian steakhouse will leave you feeling stuffed to the brim. Sure, you can't eat another bite. Until, of course, a server comes by the table with a new skewer of delicious grilled meat. With so many options to choose from, if you leave the restaurant walking upright, you're doing it wrong. Though you might assume that America's huge portion sizes have prepared you for this moment, Brazilian steakhouses take it to a whole new level. Brace yourself, and more importantly, pace yourself. Churrasco-style grilling was created to show off the pure essence of the meat. Most of the time, churrasco meats are seasoned only with salt before being put on the grill. The skewers are stacked on top of one another with the fattier cuts on top, so the juices drip down and infuse the other meats with flavor. Brazilian barbecue lacks the smoky flavor popular in Texas and the US more broadly because Brazilian gauchos wanted to preserve the basic flavor of their farm-raised beef. Instead of smoking the meat, which alters the taste, they roasted it slowly on skewers until the outer layer was nicely seared and the inside was tender and juicy. Though beef is the most common kind of churrasco meat, Brazilian steakhouses often serve poultry and lamb as well. Unlike beef, these meats usually get a long marinade in a rich sauce before grilled, giving them an extra boost of flavor. Brazilian cowboys, or gauchos, were the first to cook meat Brazilian steakhouse style in the 1800s. The men would spend their days herding cattle and their nights grilling the meat over a fire for their friends and family. They prepared the food the same way it's done now. Simply sprinkle on some salt and slow roast over hot coals. Back in the beginning of churrasco, gauchos dug pits in the ground to build their fires and waited until it was extremely hot before skewering the meat and starting the roasting process. In those days, the men oversaw the meat, from pasture to butcher to spit, while the women gathered the food they had grown in gardens and prepared side dishes. The meal was a family effort and a celebration. The gauchos and their families gathered around the fire together, similar to the way you might gather with family and friends around the table to enjoy the same Brazilian meats.
Brazilian steakhouses are known for their wide variety of mouth-watering meats. But what if you're not sure which one you're eating? Let's start with picanha, the most typical cut of meat at a Brazilian steakhouse, and a must-have for anyone experiencing a churrascaria for the first time. Picanha is a crescent-shaped cut of meat with the fat cap attached that, when skewered, looks a little like a half medallion. It comes from an animal's hindquarters and is also called the rump cap, rump cover, sirloin cap, or occasionally culotte. Because it has a fat cap that melts as it cooks, picanha is a tender, juicy cut of meat perfect for slow roasting and often prepared with just a hint of salt. You can find beef, pork, or even lamb picanha, depending on the restaurant, but all are solid choices if you want the authentic churrascaria experience. While you might be hard-pressed to find picanha outside of a Brazilian steakhouse in the United States, the cut is incredibly popular in Brazil and often found at kilo restaurants, a frequent option for lunch similar to the all-you-can-eat buffet, except that you pay by the weight of your plate. BBC Close-Up visited a kilo restaurant in São Paulo and put together a classic plate of grilled picanha steak that weighed in at about 5 kilos and cost about $3.50. Now that's a lunch we can get behind. Fraldinha is another cut of meat you're likely to find at a Brazilian steakhouse. Similar to flank steak, it's served in long, flat pieces with a pink middle and grilled crust. It's cut against the grain to make it as tender and delicious as possible. As recommended by Taste Atlas, it's often served with a sharp, vinegary salsa. As explained by The Spruce Eats, sirloin is typically divided into two cuts, bottom sirloin and top sirloin. Fraldinha is a bottom sirloin. Both are a bit tougher than some other cuts of meat because they come from a more muscular area, making them well-suited to the slow roasting process of Brazilian churrasco. According to Churrasco Shop, Fraldinha was introduced in Brazil by a butcher and restaurateur named Marcos Bassi in 1967. Bassi had a French customer who always requested this cut of meat, then essentially unknown in Brazil. And over time, he started to tweak the cut and serve it on a sandwich in sliced grilled pieces. It was obviously a success, and today, Fraldinha is a churrasco staple throughout the country. Alcatra is the top sirloin to Fraldinha's bottom sirloin, the yin to its yang. It's one of the largest skewered cuts served as part of churrasco, and is prized for its succulent, hearty beef flavor. Long and lean, this beef cut is seasoned with salt and grilled with a layer of fat that melts away and leaves the remainder crispy and delicious. It's another one you don't want to miss. Top sirloin makes for great steaks and is a good choice if you're looking for something that's marbled and flavorful while being a bit more on the lean side. It's also very versatile and a good option for making at home, especially if you're shopping on a budget. If you see chuleta on the menu, you're in for some whole ribeye steaks skewered and grilled. Like their name suggests, ribeye steaks come from the rib section of a cow. Butchers can prepare them to be bone-in or boneless, and the meat is marbled with a good amount of intramuscular fat that gives the meat its flavor and moisture. Speaking of that marbling, we happen to think it makes the ribeye the best cut of steak ever. That's why it's no surprise to us that Kobe, a type of Wagyu beef from Tajima cattle raised in Hyogo, Japan, and one of the most prized types of beef in the world, is a ribeye steak. It's actually pretty rare to find real Kobe, but if you're lucky, you might just find Wagyu on the menu of your local Brazilian steakhouse for an extra elevated experience. This one doesn't need much explanation. Also known as tenderloin steak, filet mignon is lean, tender, and sold boneless. It comes from the area below the backbone, the same area as strip steak, T-bones, and porterhouse steaks, all of which are well suited to the grill. As reported by CNN Travel, its tenderness and lack of fat make it a favorite among Brazilian churrascarias, and it can be delicious when prepared in signature churrasco style.
Thank you all for being here. Let's get started.
Wow, great attitude, Ron.
Sorry, I was talking to these ribs.
Costela translates to ribs, and at a Brazilian steakhouse, you'll see slabs of ribs that look too good to be true. As impressive to look at as they are delicious to eat, pork or beef churrasco ribs are a must, if you aren't afraid to get a little messy. James Hills, author of the food and travel blog Man Tripping, told MASH that the perfectly caramelized edges of churrasco ribs give the meat a hint of sweetness. The benefit to serving them Rodizio style is that it gives you a chance to try them without filling yourself up. He explained, "At a regular steakhouse, by the time you get through a beef rib, it's a lot of fat and heaviness, but just a piece of it, it's perfect." While we're willing to bet the best Brazilian steakhouses aren't making any of the most common mistakes people make when cooking ribs, the rest of us might want to check out some foolproof ways to serve up mouth-watering ribs at home, too. Often confused with chorizo, but with a milder flavor, linguiça is a type of Portuguese sausage commonly served in a Brazilian steakhouse. On the Gas notes that while linguiça translates literally to tongue, this sausage isn't made of tongues at all. It's made from ground pork and spices, and the name is simply a reference to its tongue-like shape. Linguiça gets its flavor from spices like garlic, paprika, oregano, and cumin, paired with a vinegar brine and smoke curing. The salt and vinegar brine helps mellow out the meaty flavor of the sausage, and it's smoked to make it even more flavorful and tender. Delighted Cooking notes that linguiça is typically made with pork butt, a cut that, oddly enough, actually comes from the shoulder area. This cut is higher in connective tissue, so turning it into ground pork or sausages, or using longer cooking methods is typically best. While beef gets much of the spotlight at a Brazilian steakhouse, the lombo isn't something to miss either. The Portuguese word lombo translates literally to loin, and on a churrasco menu, most often refers to pork loin served with a crust or sprinkling of parmesan that lends a smoky, savory flavor. A Taste of Home notes that pork loin, not to be confused with pork tenderloin, is a cut from between the spine and ribs. It's often trimmed in a way that leaves a fat cap on the top of the cut, similar to picanha, to help the pork stay moist while it roasts. Pork tenderloin, on the other hand, is from above the spine and is more tender because it contains less muscle. Nevertheless, pork loin is better suited to churrasco because it has that fat cap to keep it juicy, while pork tenderloin is more prone to drying out. Though if you're making it at home, marinade helps. Cordeiro means lamb, and you'll find it at many Brazilian steakhouses in the form of bone-in steaks and chops cut from a rack. As noted by Very Well Fit, lamb is a fairly lean protein with 10 grams of fat per serving. According to Kitchen, it has a stronger, more gamey flavor than beef, pork, or chicken, a direct result of the time an animal spends grazing at pasture, and stands up well to bold spices and char from the grill. If you try lamb next time you're at a Brazilian steakhouse and want to recreate part of the experience at home, it's easier than you might think to make an almost as impressive rack yourself. Recipes all over the internet share secrets on how to get the Cordeiro taste at home. But nothing beats the skewer-to-table feel at a traditional Brazilian steakhouse. Frango is Portuguese for chicken, and many Brazilian steakhouses have some version of it on the menu. Options range from bacon-wrapped chicken breasts to sweet and sour marinated drumsticks, all served on skewers, of course. Tasty options, yes, but we wholeheartedly support the steak when you're at a Brazilian steakhouse. As Man Tripping's James Hill put it to Mashed, "I never get the chicken. Chicken is not what I'm going to spend my appetite budget on." That said, there are some chicken options very authentic to the churrasco experience. Take Chorizo de Frango, for example. You won't find it on every Brazilian steakhouse menu, but if you do, you'll see chicken hearts grilled in classic churrasco style among the skewers brought to your table. According to food blogger Brazilian Kitchen Abroad, Chorizo de Frango is a classic appetizer of the authentic churrasco experience and tastes similar to dark meat chicken, just a little chewier and sweeter with a bit of a metallic tang. Last but certainly not least, we have Cupim. This isn't a cut you're very likely to see in the United States.
The cattle site says that Cupim comes from a special breed of cow called the Brazilian Zebu that, unlike the cows we're most used to seeing here, have a hump between their shoulder blades, much like a camel. That hump is where Cupim comes from. Tender, rich, and marbled, Taste Atlas explains that Cupim has no blood or juice and, when eaten, is described as rich and fatty, with a bit of a stringy texture. So if you do come across this unique cut of meat, we definitely recommend giving it a try.
What are the best things to eat at a Brazilian steakhouse? We consulted with the chef and some notable experts in the Brazilian steakhouse dining world and got their advice on the best ways to spend your calories. Jean Delgado, the executive chef at Toro Toro in Miami, said, "When anyone thinks of a Brazilian steakhouse, the first thing they think of is picanha. If you're not overly familiar with picanha, it's the crescent-shaped cut with the fat cap that's become the iconic image of Rodízio and the quintessential cut to get when you go. According to Steak School, the cut is taken from the cow's backside, also called the rump cap, rump cover, sirloin cap, or occasionally culotte. But the Brazilian steakhouse preparation, with a hint of salt, is called picanha. Chef Delgado told MASH that picanha is best served medium rare to medium to ensure that the fat and juices are all captured in the meat. He added that it's especially important to make sure that the picanha is sliced correctly as well. It should be cut against the grain to ensure the proper texture. The other quintessential Brazilian steakhouse menu item isn't even steak, according to Jean Delgado. It's seafood wrapped in pork. The traditional skewers of bacon-wrapped scallops start with fresh sea scallops, are then wrapped with thick slices of cured bacon and are roasted in the Rodizio until the bacon is delightfully crispy. The smoke flavor from the cured meat in the grill, along with the bacon fat, seeps into the savory scallops, creating a unique flavor that's hard to find elsewhere. Chef Delgado says, "People love this classic dish. The mom and pops want to go back just for the bacon-wrapped scallops. They're not the only seafood item that's worth checking out at a Brazilian steakhouse, though." James Hills, author of the food and travel blog Man Tripping, wrote an extensive guide to Brazilian steakhouses. He told MASH that if you see a salmon or lobster in the Rodizio, to give it a shot. Advising against ribeye is not to say that Brazilian steakhouses use lesser quality cuts of meat than their American counterparts. In fact, in an interview with Fly and Dine, Enrique Opelhuya, head gaucho at Fogo de Chão in Los Angeles, revealed that the chain uses only 100% Black Angus beef and that Fogo is highly selective about the cuts they pick. He said, "You need naturally tender beef." And ribeye, especially higher quality ribeye, still scores well in the tenderness department and is far higher in fat and flavor than filet mignon, according to Rob Report. But at the end of the day, it's still an American cut and ultimately something you'll find in abundance elsewhere. As you settle in for your festival of meat at a Brazilian steakhouse, you may see your servers gliding around holding long metal skewers of sausage. Many times, this will be Brazilian chorizo, a cured meat sausage that's especially tasty out of the Rodizio. According to HuffPost, the Brazilian version is very similar to the original Spanish chorizo, which includes sweet and hot varieties of pork mixed with paprika. Jean Delgado, executive chef at Toro Toro in Miami, said, "If there's one item I love at a Brazilian steakhouse, it's chorizo. I think it's because they rotate it in with their steaks. It's just a great quality." In addition to the chorizo, Delgado also recommends trying the Brazilian brisket sausages if they're being offered. He told MASH that the finely ground brisket is mixed with paprika and garlic that don't overpower the meat. And when it's smoked, it creates a flavor profile unique to this sausage. Filet mignon is often held up as the ultimate cut of steak, a tender, expensive variety that's used interchangeably with caviar and champagne in luxe life hyperbole. According to the Rob Report, this is mostly because the muscle that it comes from, the tenderloin in the lower back, is especially tender because it isn't used much. Katie Flannery, butcher and COO at Flannery Beef, told Rob Report, "They're not doing gymnastics, so filet muscles get almost zero use during the animal's lifetime. That's why it's so tender." Fly and Dine points out that while filets, which are low in fat, are great as 6-ounce or 8-ounce cuts, little pieces of it wrapped in bacon really won't do much for you. When beef ribs come out at a Brazilian steakhouse, it's a little reminiscent of Fred Flintstone getting a slab of brontosaurus meat that's so big it topples his car.
Would you like to try for a case of amnesia, Jumbo? You wouldn't dare.
James Hills described the visual of beef ribs brought to the table as a sight that's just as impressive to the eyes as it is to the stomach. He told Mashed, "Pork ribs, they're nice, but it's mostly bone. Beef ribs coming out on a plate? It's just this giant hunk of meat that's big and juicy and fatty. It's a cool experience." The flavor, Hills said, is equally monumental, with perfectly caramelized edges on the meat, giving the ribs a hint of sweetness. Yes, if you're watching your cholesterol, a chicken breast is often the wiser choice than a big hunk of fatty steak. But if you're watching your cholesterol, why'd you just drop $75 on an all-you-can-eat steak dinner? Opting for the healthier option went out the window the minute you booked a table at a Brazilian steakhouse. And though the chicken may well be tasty and finely prepared, Man Tripping's James Hills says it's kind of a waste. He revealed to Mashed, "I'm reluctant to say in general because everyone is a little different, but if you look at the selections that are out, some are not as prime as others, so I never get chicken. Chicken is not what I'm going to spend my appetite budget on." Though beef tends to be the star attraction at a Brazilian steakhouse, it's far from the only thing on the menu. And in addition to stuffing yourself with enough beef to feed an entire preschool class, part of the idea in going is also to try some stuff that's unique to Brazilian cuisine. In its guide to eating at Brazilian steakhouses, Fly and Dine suggests branching out from the stuff you know and delving into some other specialties. Among these is the traditional Brazilian pork loin known as Lombo. Fly and Dine describes it as a Parmesan-crusted cut, promising you'll be rewarded for your adventure. Grill Hall, a Churrascaria in Maple Grove, Minnesota, delves a little deeper into Lombo, saying, "It's a traditional slow-roasted style of pork that is usually seasoned sparingly with salt, garlic, and some other herbs. It's not exclusively served with a Parmesan crust. Sometimes it's covered with other cheeses, or sometimes none at all, but Parmesan is the most common." If you manage to heed our earlier advice and don't immediately spoil your appetite at the salad bar, you may be tempted to pile your plate with the first meats that show up at your table. But while satisfying, this may not be the best idea. In its guide to eating at Brazilian steakhouses, Groupon stresses some patience after you flip your card to green. Steakhouses, the online coupon site says, often save the more expensive and tastier cuts of meat for last. So the juicy picanha and prime rib won't show up until after the flank steak and chicken. If you can hold off a little bit, you'll get the better stuff. The abundance of side dishes at a Brazilian steakhouse can make you feel conflicted. You're spending a lot of money to enjoy the beef, so using valuable stomach space on sides might seem like a waste. At the same time, you also want to try some classic Brazilian dishes that don't come on a stick. James Hills told Mashed that even if you're there for meat, it's worth trying a side or two. And if you've got to try one, he says it's Farofa. He shared, "Personally, I don't love it, but it's a fun way to explore another culture." Farofa, according to Rio and Learn, is a toasted yucca flour that's prepared all kinds of ways. It's typically served as a side with meat, rice, or beans, but you may see it served by itself too. In a traditional steakhouse, drowning your prime filet in steak sauce is a big-time no-no. It might even earn you a not-so-subtle sneer from your waiter if you try, and will definitely infuriate the chef.
I'm extremely disappointed in you. This is a joke to you.
But this is not the case at a Brazilian steakhouse, not because the meat is of inferior quality, but because, according to Chef Gene Delgado, it's not very seasoned. He told Mashed, "You don't see much seasoning, so it's kind of bland." This, however, is easily offset by the abundance of sauces most Brazilian steakhouses offer on the side. Typically, these will include yucca flour and a vinaigrette sauce called a molho à campanha that's a little like a pico de gallo, with red and green peppers instead of tomatoes. According to Insider, the acidic side is meant to cut the fat and complement the meat in the main course, and you're welcome to cover your meat and as little or as much of it as you want. Meat carver Sandro Lorenzi told Zagat, "There is no wrong way to do the toppings. Just do as you like it."
Whether you're celebrating a big occasion or you're just out with friends and family, eating at a Brazilian steakhouse is a special experience, and everybody wants to make the most of it. In regular restaurants, that generally means a round of appetizers to kick off the meal. But when you go to a churrascaria, you need a different strategy. Even though your meal likely includes an unlimited selection of mouth-watering potato and pasta salads, coleslaws, tomato and onion salads, a variety of bean salads, plus salads made with hearts of palm or beets, don't make the mistake of filling up at the salad bar before you've even gotten to all those decadent grilled meats. As the saying goes, the meat is unlimited, but your stomach is not. Now is not the time to choose dishes you can get at other places or that you eat all the time at home. Instead, pick 1 or 2 salads or sides to focus on. They should be unique flavors or contain ingredients you don't often get elsewhere. Take small portions of each and enjoy them. No going back for seconds. Save room for the meat. The Churrascaria is a meat eater's paradise. From tender filet mignon to juicy sirloin, these restaurants serve steaks of every type and every temperature. Starting with beef, try a cut of meat known as picanha. Sourced from the rump of the cow, picanha is the most famous steak in Brazilian cuisine. It's usually grilled with a salty spice rub that perfectly complements its umami flavor. And it usually comes with a thin layer of fat, which renders and caramelizes in the heat of the grill, becoming melt-in-your-mouth tender.
Super tender. Picanha is super tender all the time.
In addition to picanha, keep an eye out for its leaner cousin Alcatra, usually served medium rare, Fraldinha or flank steak, and Costela or beef ribs. Then comes the chicken. Of course, you'll see legs, thighs, wings, and breasts, but you should also watch out for small skewers of Curaçao Frango, or chicken hearts, which are incredibly popular in Brazil. Chicken wrapped in bacon is another regional favorite. And not to be outdone, most churrascarias also serve a delectable selection of grilled pork ribs, pork loin, pork belly, ham, and bacon-wrapped pork tenderloin, plus grilled salmon, grilled seafood skewers, and grilled and fried shrimp. So much protein, so little time. We already warned you to be wary of the salad bar when dining in a Brazilian steakhouse, but to maximize your dining experience and avoid all those carbs that can fill you up too early, watch out for some of these sides that might sneak their way onto your plate. Brazilian steakhouses routinely offer plain white rice or beef-flavored arroz carreteiro as a side with their grilled meats. While undeniably delicious, these dishes are less unique than many of the other foods churrascarias serve. Also keep a wary eye out for polenta, fried cassava root, or mandioca frita, and the common French fry, which Brazilians call batata frita. Again, all are good, but the more you fill up on beans, rice, and other carbs, the less room you'll have for the really special dishes. The experience of eating at a Brazilian steakhouse is unlike any other, and one of the key factors to enjoying your meal is knowing and understanding how to use your table card. It's basically a traffic signal for your server. Green is go, meaning you want to be served. Servers will see the card and stop at your table as they work their way through the dining room, offering various cuts of meat fresh from the grill. As long as your card is turned to the green side, the meat continues to arrive.
We want to feed people. We want to feed you. We want to try this, try that. What do you think about this? And we do that with passion.
Feeling full? Flip your card over to the red side. This means stop. And that's exactly what happens. The meat stops. Get your second win? Just flip the card back to green and the meat starts coming again. Simple, effective, and delicious. Nobody goes to a Brazilian steakhouse to count calories. The experience is meant to be indulgent. That said, you don't want to leave the restaurant so stuffed you go into a food coma, nor do you want to leave the steakhouse sick to your stomach from overeating. Instead of rushing, enjoy the environment. Take time during your meal to chat with the people you are dining with.
Barbara, you look marvelous.
Savor the experience. Meals at Brazilian steakhouses aren't meant to happen quickly, so pause while eating. Take in the flavors. This not only improves your overall dining experience, but it aids in digestion and helps your body process the food, making room for more. If you want the full Brazilian steakhouse experience, order a caipirinha, the national cocktail of Brazil. Crafted from a blend of cachaça, or Brazilian rum, plus lime, sugar, and ice, a caipirinha is the perfect complement to any steakhouse meal. The sweet and sour drink packs a potent flavor punch that's perfect for combining with the smoky flavors of grilled meat. Don't like lime? No problem. As with most other tropical mixed drinks, caipirinhas are generally available in a variety of flavors. including passion fruit, pineapple, or strawberry. For a slightly less sweet version of the drink, ask your bartender for a caipiroska instead. This cousin to the caipirinha is made with vodka instead of cachaça. Order a pitcher of the caipirinha or caipiroska of your choice for the table, and when everyone has their glasses raised, make like a local and offer the Brazilian toast, saúde, which translates as "to your health" in English. In Brazil, the bread of choice is what's known as pão de queijo, which translates to cheese bread. Pão de queijo is made with cassava flour. The naturally gluten-free pão de queijo is served in small rounds about the size of a large meatball. They're salty, chewy, pillowy soft, and usually eaten warm, straight out of the oven. While most pão de queijo is stuffed with a pocket of gooey melted Parmesan, there are other varieties out there, including bread made with cheddar or mozzarella. Sometimes fresh herbs like rosemary or oregano are added to the dough for even more flavor. If you're in a steakhouse with an extensive bakery menu, look for a couple of other great Brazilian specialties worth trying. Pão de alho is a type of garlic bread similar to the Italian slices we all eat with pasta. Bolo de milho is another baked favorite. This variation on cornbread is sweetened with coconut milk, giving the cornmeal a tropical sweet flavor unlike anything we typically eat here in the States. Who goes to a steakhouse and orders a stew? Millions of Brazilians, that's who. And you will too if you really want to experience the best of Brazilian cuisine. Feijoada is widely regarded as the national dish of Brazil.
It is more than just a bean stew. It is a cultural rite of passage.
This hearty stew is generally made with creamy black beans, a variety of diced up meats including pork ribs, pork belly, bacon, and sausage, and onions, garlic, bell peppers, and tomatoes, plus a blend of spices like bay leaves, cumin, black pepper, and salt. The stew is slow-cooked for hours until all the ingredients are tender. It's then served over a bed of rice, which helps to soak up all those succulent juices. Believed to have originated in the 16th century, feijoada was created by the country's poor and enslaved. The dish is based around leftovers and scraps of the meat that others wouldn't eat that were then turned into marvelous stews. And don't think you shouldn't order feijoada just because it isn't cold out. It may be a stew, but this aromatic, robust, and comforting mixture of meat and beans is popular throughout Brazil, regardless of the season. Locals even eat it in the evening after a day at the Copacabana beach. Brazilian sausage, also known as linguiça, is an essential part of the churrasco experience. It's also a delectable treat most Americans don't often get to try. There's linguiça de porco, or pork sausage, which is generally flavored with garlic and paprika. Its spicier big brother is called linguiça calabresa, which is a mixture of pork and beef as well as chili pepper and other spices. Then there's Brazilian sausage made with chicken, linguiça de frango, and even wild boar, linguiça de javali. Linguiça defumada is another Brazilian favorite, which is smoked and can have a very distinct hickory or mesquite campfire flavor. Depending on the steakhouse, you may also get the chance to experience a number of other popular Brazilian sausages. There's chorizo, which is similar to Spanish chorizo, morcella, which is a type of blood sausage made with pork blood, rice, and spices, salsicha, which is similar to a hot dog or frankfurter, which comes from the south of Brazil, and toscana, which comes from the south of Brazil and is a pork sausage famous for the sweet and spicy punch that comes from a blend of garlic and fennel seeds. Dessert at a Brazilian steakhouse should never be overlooked. Besides providing a welcome contrast to all the rich and savory steaks and sausages you've downed. And Brazilian desserts have another thing going for them. They're unique and tend to be a must-try for any true foodie. 4 of our favorites include pudim de leite, which is a silky caramel flan made from milk, sugar, eggs, and condensed milk. Quinjem, which is a creamy, sticky coconut custard, bolo girolo, a thin sponge cake coated with guava paste, or dulce de leche, then served in rolled slices. And finally, the beautifully named Homeo I Giulietta, which is essentially a layer of guava paste topped with a layer of a mild white cheese called Minas cheese, offering the ideal pairing of sweet and fruity plus salty and creamy. Too full for an entire dessert? Ask if the restaurant has any cocada. This simple candy is made with grated coconut, sugar, and milk, and provides chewy, crunchy, sweet, and nutty notes to round out any heavy meat-packed meal. Whatever you choose, we hope your trip to the Brazilian Steakhouse is a meal to remember. As they say in Brazil, bom appetite, which literally translates as good appetite.
Above and beyond the nuances of food sharing etiquette, why would you want to share your meal with someone when feasting at a Brazilian steakhouse? Appetites vary, so some diners might opt for a smaller dish rather than a blowout package. However, once that meat arrives lavishly carved from a skewer, it might be a different story. Even small or picky eaters are going to find those tender slices hard to resist. If you've just realized how ridiculously good picanha steak tastes and want your dining companion to taste it, then no problem. One bite and they may ditch the salad and get on the same meat-eating journey as you. If this turns into full slices or enough bites that it constitutes actually sharing the meal, then that's a no-go in terms of etiquette. One way to avoid any misunderstanding is to signal to the meat carvers, or gauchos, that you're offering a sample or two to your companion. Better this than the embarrassment of being called out for oversharing. Remember, the response will depend on the establishment, price, and management style. When you sit down at a churrascaria, you may notice a pair of tongs on your plate. You'll also be given this utensil if you dine at a Korean, Thai, or Japanese barbecue restaurant where you cook meat at a tabletop grill. There's no grilling required by diners when eating at a Brazilian steakhouse, but the tongs are there for an important reason that involves one of the etiquette rules you should always follow. A gaucho rocks up with a gigantic skewer of picanha steak and other meaty delights. With a huge carving knife in their other hand, the server slices the meat, but you shouldn't just let the serving flop onto your plate with juices spraying everywhere. And there's nothing the carver can do because they are already fully occupied with their hands. The polite move is to grab the slice with your tongs and transport it to your plate as it comes away from the skewer.
So I think I'm missing a step. Are we supposed to pull it?
Okay, to pull the meat.
Gripping onto the meat also helps keep the slice in place so it's easier to carve. You're not doing the staff a favor. It's actually what is expected. If you don't pay attention, you might find an awkward moment of pause while the gaucho waits for you to grab the tongs. If you realize that a slice of meat is about to fall as the gaucho carves it off, your first instinct might be to stick your fork into the slice as the final cut is made. Makes sense, right? As it turns out, that's not regarded as polite at a Brazilian steakhouse. For one, you might end up piercing the carver's hand. Additionally, you may even miss the intended slice altogether and stab your used fork into the main cut of meat that's meant for other diners. When eating at a Brazilian steakhouse, treating the gauchos as if they are there for other requirements beyond the meat is a faux pas and should never be done. Chomping into all this food is bound to make you thirsty enough for a Brazilian lemonade. And since plenty of people dine at a churrasco-style eatery to celebrate a special occasion, you might want a classic Brazilian cocktail, such as a caipirinha, to toast a magnificent dining experience.
A caipirinha. Saúde.
However, gauchos aren't there to take drink orders or bring you beverages. They are not there to deal with the bill or anything else beyond meat carving. Period. Look for servers to assist you. Add extra demands on a gaucho, and you might find they aren't as available to serve you meat with quite the same dedication. It's not a question of attitude. They simply don't have the time or the extra hands to carry a tray full of beers. Ordinarily, dining at a churrascaria equates to slices of freshly carved meats on demand. But just because you can order as much as you like, that doesn't mean you should. One of the clearest etiquette rules you should always follow at a Brazilian steakhouse is to only order a full slice of meat if you're going to eat it. Sounds simple, but it does require some thought when everything looks so appetizing. If you're new to this type of cuisine and setting, it's probably best to try a small piece of the different meats before you commit to a big slab. If you're unsure, ask the gaucho at your table about each of the cuts and get recommendations. Leaving a smaller piece on your plate is fine if you tried it and aren't ready to commit to more. The discarded meat should be removed by servers so it's not hanging around on your plate the entire time though. So pace yourself and try more by taking smaller slices. That way, you don't weigh yourself down with one type of cut.
I'm still in the fast lane.
All right, go for it.
I'm ready to go.
Nobody is going to expect you to start speaking in Portuguese at a Brazilian steakhouse in the US, unless you can, that is. It's not that you are breaking etiquette protocol if you don't either. However, if you want to express how you want your meat cooked, then use some of the right lingo. Building a bond with meat carvers and showing consideration about what you're eating can greatly enhance the whole experience. This is dining out in an interactive, theatrical style after all, and adding your input is going to lead to a deeper level of enjoyment. If you love blood red steak, then you don't want to be cutting into a well-done piece, or vice versa. By saying mal passada, you're indicating you like your steak slices rare or medium rare. If you like a little pink in the middle, then the phrase to say is ao ponto. To make sure there's no pink at all, ask for your meat to be bem passada. Consider varying the level of cooking depending on the different cuts you try. For example, you might not want the leanest, most melt-in-your-mouth steaks to be fully charred. In Brazil, the main meal of the day is at lunchtime. In the US, you're more likely to have a blowout dinner than a midday feast. Whatever time of day it is, whatever the occasion, and whomever you're dining with, eating at a Brazilian steakhouse is never going to be a quick event. And with so many delicious grilled meats being paraded around the dining room, it shouldn't be. The last thing you want to add to the experience is a time constraint. Rushing meats and sides isn't going to be appreciated by staff or by whoever you're sharing the meal with. You don't want to come off as if you're desperately trying to get as much for your money as possible. However, don't be too slow either, or you'll miss out on the best bits.
And just when you try to catch your breath, there's more.
It's not polite to rush the gauchos or eat as much as you can in a short period. You might be eating meat like a committed carnivore, but don't stuff it in your mouth using your hands. Use a knife and fork at all times. Beyond the fact that rushing goes against the dining atmosphere and makes others uncomfortable, it can ruin your meal too. If you want to try as many different varieties of meats as you can, then slow it down. Fill up too quickly, and you'll never recover enough to reach the end. You're probably used to set menus of 2 or 3 courses for lunch or navigating an a la carte menu for dinner. If you've eaten at barbecue restaurants before, then you might be familiar with the idea of eating within a certain time period or having a specific number of plates included. With a Brazilian steakhouse, the standard practice is that diners pay a fee and then indulge in the cuts of beef, as well as other meats like pork and chicken. However, and this is certainly the case if dining with a group and splitting the bill, it's best to know what's included in the set price. There's nothing worse than trying to digest too much top sirloin while being faced with a higher than expected bill at the end. Appetizers, seafood dishes, and special sides may not be included in the fixed price, while high-value cuts of meat may also attract an extra cost. Drinks and desserts are often not included, although you might be able to take advantage of a happy hour. You can also opt for specific main courses rather than an endless rotation of grilled cuts of beef. And don't forget to factor in any deals you can get for accompanying children. Every country has its guidelines on what's expected when it comes to tipping, and it's not like one rule serves all. In Brazil, it's customary to tip 10%. However, if that Brazilian steakhouse happens to be in the US, then it's best to follow the local tipping etiquette and stick with the accepted 15 to 20% for dinner. If the service is particularly poor or exemplary, then adjust accordingly. If you are dining as a group, then check beforehand whether the tip is automatically added to the bill. You might be encouraged to tip generously at a churrascaria, given that the gauchos are basically putting on a performance, and a skilled one at that. This type of dining might be value for your money, but it's never going to be the cheapest night out. So don't scrimp on the tip if it's been an incredible experience.
The first fogo de chão in the world was started in 1979 in Porto Alegre in southern Brazil. This was almost 20 years before the company's expansion into the US, but it was a vital time for the restaurant to define itself and its reputation. Perhaps its biggest success was the fact that Fogo de Chão wanted to keep centuries-old culinary traditions alive, traditions specific to this particular region of Brazil. At the same time, the company focused heavily on top-notch customer service and excellent quality in the food and the dining experience alike. Perhaps most importantly, the restaurant wanted to celebrate and stay connected to the local culture. Fogo de Chão may not have been the first chain of Brazilian steakhouse restaurants in the United States, but it was largely responsible for the popularity of these kinds of eateries. The first U.S. Fogo de Chão location opened in 1997 in Dallas, Texas. The company passed up cities like New York and Miami because it felt Texas was ideal. The state already had a strong barbecue culture after all. According to reporting by Eater, Ari Koser, one of the co-founders of Fogo de Chão, explained the decision by stating, "I saw a connection between the Brazilian gauchos and the Texas cowboys, so it seemed to be the best region to start." Sure, you may have had Mexican or Chinese food before, but unless you've actually been to the source, there's a good chance that you are not getting an authentic version of another culture's food, but a more Americanized version. Luckily, Fogo de Chão offers more of an authentic experience. Since the chain started off in Brazil, it had to stay true to its roots. Expanding into the US market didn't make the company water down its product or experience either. It wanted to bring a true churrasco experience to the country, and it continues to do so successfully to this day. Guests can be confident that they're enjoying an authentic dining experience, and that's not exactly common in chain restaurants. Since Fogo de Chão is more of an upscale restaurant, guests can expect to drop some money at dinner, especially if they order drinks in addition to food. It's possible to get the same experience for less money, though. The main trick is to go at the right time. Dinner prices at Fogo de Chão are higher, but the restaurant is open for lunch too, and the prices are more reasonable during that time. The Gaucho lunch is available on the weekdays, and it gives guests access to the market table and feijoada bar for just $15. While this offer doesn't include the unlimited meat selection, it only costs $8 to $10 more. Though these exact price points can differ by location, one thing is sure: lunch is the more affordable dining option for those who want to save on their next Fogo experience. Fogo de Chão may not seem like the most obvious restaurant to start a delivery wing of its business, especially since it does seem to rely so heavily on the in-person experience. But it really is possible to get a whole meal from Fogo delivered to your house. Customers can choose from churrasco combinations, which offers one type of meat and 2 side dishes. Feeding more than a few people? Fogo also offers deliveries of different meats by the pound, so you can stock up on your favorites or share with your whole party. This restaurant is about the experience, but sometimes guests want the flavor without having to leave the couch and get dressed up, and Fogo's delivery makes it easier for customers to get their Fogo fill whenever they have a craving for it. A new type of dining called Rodízio was growing in popularity in southern Brazil in the 70s. The organization of the restaurant is exactly what we expect from Fogo de Chão now. Servers coming around with grilled meat on skewers, giving a few slices to everyone in the room.
Is that something that is traditional in Brazil?
Yeah, that traditionally started in southern Brazil, and now it's spread around the world.
These eateries were originally frequented by truck drivers who would stop at the roadside restaurants. Since there were plenty of cattle around, the food was cheap and filling. In the beginning, these eateries were more like gas stations than restaurants. The meat was usually cooked outside in tin-roofed rooms, and most didn't even have table seating at first. Drivers would often wait for their food, take it, and be on their way. However, as this type of cuisine became more popular, restaurants started adding tables so patrons could sit down to enjoy their meals. Fogo was the restaurant that took the idea to the next level, though. The founders wanted to bring Rodizio-style dining to the big cities, instead of sticking to the side of the road. They also added an upscale flair to the atmosphere, complete with real glasses and white tablecloths. Once Fogo de Chão came to the United States, the restaurant exploded in popularity. But the company had bigger ideas than leaving it at that. The restaurant chain added a location in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia in August 2017. Larry Johnson, the chief executive officer of Fogo de Chão, spoke to the Saudi Gazette about the expansion, saying, "Jeddah is such an exciting, dynamic city filled with unique restaurants from all over the world. We saw this as a great opportunity to become part of their growing culinary scene. We are thrilled to officially join the community and share our passion for Southern Brazilian cooking and hospitality with Saudi residents and visitors alike." Of course, the traditional cocktails found at other Fogo de Chão locations won't be available in Jeddah, but the company did create a mocktail menu specifically for this location, offering visitors here just as many options to explore the flavors of the cuisine. In addition to the Jeddah location, Fogo has also expanded into Dubai.
Obviously, when you think of a Brazilian steakhouse like Texas de Brazil, you might assume that it was founded by someone from either Texas or Brazil. But in actuality, the founder of the chain restaurant, Salim Azraoui, immigrated to the United States from Lebanon, and his story is pretty inspiring. According to D Magazine, Azraoui came to the United States in 1981, along with 1 million others, as war raged on in his home country of Lebanon. The war lasted from 1975 to 1990, and as he told D Magazine, quote, "War became part of my life." So how does the chain manage to feature such delicious, authentic Brazilian cuisine? In 1997, Azraoui and his business partner visited Brazil and ate at the restaurant of chef Evandro Carinhato. They were obviously impressed with his skills, and the fact that he was an actual gaucho was also appealing. Because of that, the three worked together to open Texas de Brazil in the Dallas area, with one founding principle: they wouldn't change the traditional preparation and serving of the churrasco dinner. After years of hard work, planning, and a strong desire to create an authentic Brazilian experience in Texas, Azraoui and Carinhado opened the first location of Texas de Brazil in 1998 in Addison, Texas. As Azraoui told D Magazine, it wasn't an easy process, but it was worth it. If you put in the time and effort, you will succeed one way or another. It required me to dig as deep as I've ever dug. Opening a new restaurant is never an easy endeavor, but from their first location onward, Azraoui never gave up. And with such an original concept and great team behind his back, it's no wonder it became such a success. Typically, when the economy struggles, so do restaurants. People stop eating out as much, so it makes sense that restaurants would suffer the consequences. But for Texas de Brazil, a bad economy can't stop them from expanding and opening even more locations. According to Nation's Restaurant News, while many chain establishments struggled in 2013 and the years prior, Texas de Brazil wasn't one of them. Their director of operations told the publication that the success of Texas de Brazil was due in large part to the chain being strategic and smart in how they expanded. In this economy, there are a lot of good deals to be had. People are willing to negotiate and provide better terms for businesses. At the same time, a lot of restaurants are folding, and there are spaces available. It's all a matter of taking advantage of the good deals. In 2020, amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, Texas de Brazil responded by offering more to-go options and taking reservations to keep indoor dining safe and responsible. That said, the chain has had to close at least one location because of the pandemic. But it seems other locations have remained open, which is pretty impressive. A struggling economy can't stop Texas de Brazil. If you're looking for an economically friendly meal, then Texas de Brazil probably isn't for you. Yes, it's a lot of food, but since your dine-in options are mostly eating from the price-fixed menu, you'll be paying a premium price for all that food. Specifically, depending on the location of the restaurant, one meal will cost anywhere from $42.99 to $48.99. So while Texas de Brazil is certainly a unique dining experience, it's also by no means a cheap night out. And because of that, you won't find a Texas de Brazil in just any neighborhood. Malcolm Knapp, president of a restaurant consulting firm, told Nation's Restaurant News, quote, "Texas de Brazil is an upscale brand, so it can't go everywhere. It needs the right location." Because Texas de Brazil is an upscale dining experience, there's no real kids menu. So it's understandable that you might assume it's not really a kid-friendly restaurant. But there is a perk to bringing your kids, as you don't have to pay full price for them. Specifically, as long as you have one full-priced adult meal, your kids can get a pretty great discount on their own Brazilian Steakhouse experience. If your child is 2 or younger, they can eat for free, while children up to 5 years old are only $5 for the authentic Brazilian meal. And kids up to 12 are half off your regular full-price dinner cost. So don't be afraid to bring your kids along to Texas de Brazil, as they won't cost a ton and they'll definitely get full and have plenty to choose from. Another huge thing that sets Texas de Brazil apart from other restaurant chains is that you don't get to take any food home with you. It's the policy at Texas de Brazil to not allow customers to take home to-go bags after dining in. According to the chain's website, they believe that restaurant goers pretty much already get their fair share of food while in the restaurant, saying, "Our continuous dining concept does not allow for to-go containers or bags for uneaten portions of food from the salad area, meats, and specialty or side items." But if you find yourself hungry for dessert, you can order that separately and take those home. It makes sense that Texas de Brazil wouldn't allow leftovers, as the chain is basically an upscale all-you-can-eat buffet. So don't be surprised when you don't get a to-go box at the end of your meal. While Texas de Brazil might be pretty stringent about taking home leftovers after a delicious meal, there is one way you can enjoy traditional Brazilian churrasco at home, ordering Texas de Brazil to go. Yes, it won't be the same as getting to eat at the actual restaurant, but it's a pretty great deal if you want to stay home in your sweatpants and even save some cash. As it turns out, Texas de Brazil's to-go family packs are a pretty good deal. As of November 2020, the meal comes with 2 different types of meat, enough for 4 people, for $69. The meal also comes with 3 sides that are super tasty too. a green salad, fried plantains, and potatoes au gratin. According to a review in the OC Register, the takeout from Texas de Brazil is solid because the meats are sliced nicely and hold their flavor even after delivery. Considering the cost of Texas de Brazil, it might not exactly be the kind of place you just randomly decide to go to on a Tuesday night. But for the frugal-minded who still hunger for a unique dining experience, we have a life hack for you. The bar menu is cheaper. From the bar menu, you can actually order quite a lot of food. There's lobster bisque, an antipasto platter, chicken breast, garlic sirloin, sausage, and even filet with bacon. It's not an endless array of roasted meats like you get in the restaurant proper, but you can certainly get a full meal just at the bar at Texas de Brazil. So if you aren't super hungry, don't care for the salad bar, or just want to save some money, then it might be a smart idea to order from the bar menu so you can pick and choose what you want and pay less.
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys!
If you're going to a Brazilian steakhouse, you want the best experience possible, right? It pays to be choosy with your churrasco. A New York City legend, Churrascaria Plataforma has been bringing the fire to the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood since 1996. If you're seriously hungry, you can go for the all-you-can-eat option while keeping an eye out in particular for the lamb. If meat isn't all you're looking for, this humongous restaurant also boasts salad and feijoada bars. Considering Churrascaria Plataforma's location and top-quality meats, the price tag is noticeably higher than the other places on this list. Generally speaking, your bill will come out to about $69 for the full spread, but it's worth the price of admission to grab a seat in the massive dining room and indulge a little. And if you're willing to forego some of the flashier meats such as ribeye, filet mignon, and lamb chops, then you can certainly stop by during lunch. That's when the whole shebang is reduced to $42, and you can still get your fill on picanha, pork loin, and that killer leg of lamb, not to mention the gourmet salad bar and extensive side selection. Massachusetts is home to a sizable Brazilian population, so it's no surprise that you can find stellar churrasco in Boston. Alma Gaúcha, which translates to the soul of the cowboy, is among the best churrascarias in the city. A recent addition to the trendy Seaport district, it traffics exclusively in USDA prime meats that are aged up to 45 days, and you can definitely taste the quality. Choose from picanha, ribeye, filet mignon, and New Zealand lamb leg, marinated with lemon and fresh mint. If you're avoiding red meat, Alma Gaúcha has you covered. You can choose from pork ribs, traditional Parmesan pork, and slow-cooked chicken marinated overnight in beer and cognac. There's also a seafood option, with some open fire-grilled salmon that's served with a tangy passion fruit sauce. The salad bar and side dishes are also deserving of plenty of raves, with a honey-drizzled grilled cheese among the popular picks. You can even order a cup of chunky clam chowder. This is Boston, after all. Enophiles are sure to appreciate the extensive wine list at Alma Gaúcha, which is over 150 bottles deep and highlights several South American varietals, naturally enough. Before all the rest, there was Rodizio Grill, which became the first Brazilian steakhouse to land in the US when it opened in Littleton, Colorado in 1996. The chain is still going strong, dazzling diners with its signature grilled pineapple and rotisserie grilled meats that are carved tableside. The menu includes standards such as picanha and chicken wrapped in bacon, plus a few interesting additions including a center-cut steak topped with Parmesan cheese. For the more adventurous eater, there's the popular Brazilian appetizer, Coração de Frango Temperado, which is grilled chicken hearts, if your Portuguese is a bit rusty, like mine. While Rodizio Grill may lag a bit in the quality department compared to some of its peers, the full Rodizio is fairly affordable, as it's priced at less than $35. This includes unlimited Brazilian sides and all the rotisserie grilled meats you can manage to stuff down your gullet. Considering the prices of some of the other spots on this list, that's a relative bargain. And if you're a regular or plan to be one, sign up for Club Rodizio to receive restaurant promotions and offers including a special gift for your birthday.
Have you ever been to Rodizio Grill, or have you been here lately? If not, maybe it's time for you to come.
If you're going to open a steakhouse in traditional bastions of beef like Chicago, Houston, and San Antonio, then you better bring the goods. Chama Gaúcha definitely delivers on that front, serving up a dozen meat options including multiple cuts of steak. But the beef ribs are where it's really at here.
That came from a big cow I'm just kidding.
Beyond the cow, the meat feast is rounded out with chicken, pork, and lamb. The salad bar also impresses diners who need yet more sustenance, as it features more than 30 items. The wine selection is also a winner, as the bottles are stored in a temperature-controlled cellar and include several award-winning labels. It may seem like an impossible task after all of that grub, but try to budget some stomach real estate for dessert. The slate includes Latin favorites such as tres leches and flan, as well as the classic Brazilian papaya cream, a tropical ice cream and fruit combo topped with creme de cassis, blackberry liqueur, but the real showstopper is the fireball cheesecake, which is set aflame tableside and caramelized thanks to a liberal dousing of Spanish favorite Liqueur 43. The San Antonio Current recommends heading here for special occasions when you've got plenty of room. And plenty of others agree that this is destination dining, as Chama Gaúcha's San Antonio location took the 24th spot on Yelp's 2019 list of the top 100 places to treat yourself. The wait is definitely worth it for the churrasco served at Pampas Grill, which is located at the iconic Original Farmers Market in Los Angeles. You'll find tourists and locals alike lining up to get their fill of assorted Brazilian specialties at this popular stall. Your first order of business will be loading up at the Serve Yourself salad bar, which features an array of veggies and sides. It also features a few hearty mains including beef stew, chicken stroganoff, and the classic feijoada, which is only available during the weekend. The next stop is the grill station, where your server will cut off slices of the meat of your choice. Be sure to make the tender garlic beef a priority, but the picanha, the chicken wrapped with bacon, and the leg of lamb are also winners. Finally, you'll reach the cash register and perform a weigh-in for your plate to determine the final cost of your meal. If you're opting for the full spread, take note that everything, from steak to hard-boiled eggs, is priced the same by the pound. In other words, to get the best bang for your buck, make sure to make the meats your priority over the salad bar items. According to Eater, the quick service spot is an especially good pick for budget-conscious diners. Or if you happen to prefer a full restaurant experience, Pampas Grill also operates a brick-and-mortar location in Culver City, California. Miami has its fair share of Latin American dining destinations, and Steak Brazil Churrascaria is definitely up there with the best of them, especially if you've got a hankering for some delicious meats. Eater notes that this is a popular downtown spot with exceptionally good prices, especially compared to some other Miami restaurants. It's also got a highly extensive menu of meats, cheese, and sides. The dining room may not be as large as some of its competitors, and we must note that the selection is relatively limited with a mere 9 meat options. But let's face it, that is still plenty to choose from. You can select among tasty prime sirloin, picanha, pork loin, leg of lamb, beef ribs, chicken hearts and drumsticks, sausage and tender flap meat. If for some reason that's not enough food to satiate your cravings, the salad bar is pretty ample. What's more, all of the non-barbecued hot dishes are freshly cooked and brought directly to your table. Steak Brazil is ideal for group gatherings as well, so be sure to consider it for your next party or special occasion. Chima Steakhouse is yet another Brazilian-based chain that has made its way stateside, and to that we say, the more the merrier. The first US location opened in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in 2004, and there are now 3 additional outlets located in Philadelphia, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Tysons Corner, Virginia. Chima is a reference to chimarrão, a traditional Brazilian drink that represents the sort of camaraderie and community-mindedness the restaurant hopes to foster. Speaking of tradition, the picanha served here is top-quality Angus prime, and for added firepower, you can order it with house-made chimichurri sauce and grilled jalapenos. Steak lovers will surely appreciate the wide assortment of cuts, which include baby top sirloin, ribeye, New York steak, and filet mignon. All of those are available plain, or for those wanting a bit of a luxurious edge, they can also come wrapped in bacon. You can even indulge in paper-thin slices of beef carpaccio at the salad bar. All 4 Chima Steakhouse locations received the 2021 Award of Excellence from Wine Spectator, which made sure to note that California varietals are the house specialty. We hope you have room for one more churrascaria, because SP Brazilian Steakhouse might just be the best spot on this list. If you happen to be anywhere in the vicinity of the Austin suburb of Lakeway, Texas, a stop here is simply a must. To put it bluntly, the reviews don't lie. Consider the fact that SP Brazilian Steakhouse comes with nearly perfect marks on Google, a perfect 5-star rating on TripAdvisor, and another 5 out of 5 rating from Yelp, which ranked the restaurant at number 17 on its list of America's top 100 places to eat in 2020. How can you argue with all that? As one Yelp reviewer summed up the hype, "You can tell this is not just another chain, but the real deal. If you have ever wanted to feel like you are a judge on Top Chef with people bringing you the finest of all the dishes to taste until you are completely stuffed, this is the restaurant for you. You should prioritize the prime cut meats, but be sure to also leave some room for homemade pão de queijo, the famed pillowy Brazilian cheese bread. And do try your very best to leave just a bit more room for an order of creamy flan and creme brulee, both of which are also prepared in-house."
Ooh, flan.